They always make me change the camera. Grand Rising, good people. Y'all know what it is. Hold on, let me get some tunes in the background. I wasn't going to do it, but let me get some tunes in the background. Make sure that we're starting off the week. Happy Labor Day. Happy Labor Day to all. Happy Labor Day to all. Hopefully, everybody's enjoying their weekend. Hopefully, you're enjoying it with some friends and family. Hopefully, you're enjoying it with some friends and family. Let me check out the chat. Hold on, can y'all hear this? Why can't y'all hear? Oh, wait, y'all can hear it. For some reason, I thought y'all couldn't hear it. There we go. There we go. Grand Rising to all. We got a great show for y'all to tap into today. Like, share on your way in. We're going to talk about this National Guard situation in Chicago. We're going to talk about Nick Fuentes, in my opinion, delivering another presidential speech. Another presidential speech doesn't mean that I would vote for him, doesn't mean that I wouldn't. But at least I'm not going to tell y'all that until we continue going. But I do think that he's bringing something necessary to the table either way. He's bringing something necessary to the table either way. And he's coming at it from a genuine and direct way. And I think the most important reason why it is for us to see more and more, turn the music off. I think one of the most important reasons why we need to continue watching the people that they don't want us to watch, like a Nick Fuentes, because it's going to apply pressure. It's going to apply pressure, accountability in a lot of different ways. And I told y'all, last week was the first week that I started digging into Nick Fuentes as much and really hearing what he had to say, processing it all. And I got to admit, I know a lot of the people don't like what he's saying, but whenever I hear him talking, I'm like, damn, bro, sounds like everything. It's the same thing that I be saying. But I think a lot of people just don't like that it's coming from a white guy. And y'all know how it is when it comes to holding people accountable. When you hold people accountable, they find whatever reason they can to dislike you or to turn you into a person that is not worth giving advice for whatever reason. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing. So make sure that y'all like, subscribe if you haven't already. I don't know where we're going to start. Matter of fact, I do know where we're going to start. So we'll start with this video that I did actually with Nick Fuentes. And for a lot of people, they may have seen this video already. It's important to show. It's important to show. Let me pull it up for you guys. This was a video that I reviewed. And the only reason why I reviewed it was because I thought it was something that was different. Something that's different that we're not hearing. This was right after the this one, which video was this? I think this was right after the transgender shooting. Let me pull it up on mine. And I think we watched the other one. I think, what did we watch in the past? We watched one with Nick Fuentes, but I think this is an important video to watch where Nick Fuentes is talking about he doesn't want to be in the competition of becoming the angriest white man in America. He sees what a lot of these politics have turned into. He sees how the left tries to always appeal and pander to whatever group of victims they're trying to talk to. And what he's also exposed is how the conservatives are doing it on the very same side. And my opinion, just my personal opinion, I think that Nick Fuentes he's realizing the responsibility that he has more and more as he generates a larger audience and realizes that I need to make sure that even though I'm performative and I use certain rhetoric in my shows, that I'm getting a message across that is a united front to advance all of America, the entire country, and perhaps humanity. Could Nick Fuentes be one of the answers to humanity? I don't know, but we're going to get into this show. We're going to get into this video. You may see me in the corner. Actually, you won't see me in the corner because I'm going to be covering myself in the corner. But first and foremost, let me get to some of these chats. What do we got in the chat? We got a whole bunch of America First chats. Good morning and happy Labor Day. Yo, first and foremost, shout out to the Groypers. I just got familiar with the Groypers. Y'all have been showing big love. Like I said, we've been putting up the videos of Nick Fuentes been reviewing the videos, and I'm super appreciative. We actually reached out to Nick Fuentes and his team. So we reached out to Nick Fuentes and his team at the America First Foundation. We're hoping to hear back soon. I'm constantly checking the email just to make sure that, I know he said before that it's okay to play his clips, but I want to take it a step further. It's not just okay for us to benefit from playing Nick's videos, reviewing Nick's videos. We want to make sure that we're showing that support as he's delivering the value to us. I want to make sure that we're delivering that value back to him. So we're looking forward to at least continuing to review. We'll see where things go. We'll see where things go. I have this own vision of where this whole thing can go in my own head. But I don't know. I'll share it with y'all as it comes to fruition. Shout out to Unc. So we also, y'all know it goes without saying. So for a lot of the groupers, y'all are just tapping in with us for the first time, maybe this week. And we do this show. We've been doing this show for the last 3 years. And we're just about purpose. We're just about taking accountability and doing whatever's in our power to advance in society, whatever that means for you. All right. Whatever that means for you, doing whatever it takes for you to accomplish your goals without embracing victimhood, without playing the blame game that we get caught up in, and without getting caught up in all the emotional energy that tends to distract us from the vision at hand. All right. So shout out to Unc in the building. Grand Rising. Good morning, everyone, to a worldwide audience. One love to all. We are one family, one people. Let's come together in different conversations. Unc just summed it up. See, you see what we're about. So shout out to all the Groypers coming in. Y'all keep coming in. Got Bub in the building. Make sure that y'all are liking on y'all way in. And I promise y'all, we will have a great show. So let me share this video with y'all. Let me share the screen. We're going to get right into it because we got a lot to discuss. So the next video after this that we're going to watch is, I don't know if a lot of y'all have seen the Patrick Bet-David interview with Bibi Netanyahu. So if you haven't seen the Patrick Bet-David interview with Bibi Netanyahu, don't trip. We're going to review as much as we can. I think it's very important to review. And the reason why is for a lot of reasons, but especially after the Nick Fuentes interview. Nick Fuentes, for a lot of those who may not be familiar, obviously the Groypers are familiar. That's his team, that's his team and supporters. But for the people that aren't familiar with Nick Fuentes, he's been painted in a way where he's an anti-Semite. He was working with Kanye. He's been painted in a way where he's a racist, all these different things, right? In my opinion, this is that same, I got to just call it out, and conservatives do it as well, but this is that same liberal Democrat argument where when somebody's pushing a particular agenda, and maybe I shouldn't have just said liberals, but because we're seeing how a lot of the parties, two different sides of the same coin. But this is what a lot of people do when they don't want you to listen to what they're saying. They paint somebody as a racist. They come at your character. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Kevin Samuels' content. Rest in peace, the big bro, the Unc. But he used to always talk about, I forget the acronym that he used to use, but it was like shame, insult, and guilt. And it was when you give certain people advice and you're telling them certain things that they may need to work on and take accountability for, they start to shame you, insult you, and have this certain level of pushback, anything that goes against them taking accountability. So it's like, you'll attack my character, but you will never attack my argument. And we've seen this over and over, especially when it comes to the Israel-Palestine conversation. We see this over and over where people will start to try to attack somebody's character. This is anti-Semitic. This is racist. This is whatever else they want to throw in there. But they never attack the argument. We've seen with the feminist movement, you're a misogynist. Okay, put that to the side. What do you disagree with as far as the argument? So this is how they've tried to paint Nick Fuentes for calling out a lot of this stuff. And then when you see a guy like Patrick Bet-David interviewing Bibi Netanyahu, it tends to make sense. Throwing out softball questions, not asking anything that the American people want to ask, and instead just pandering to him. And this is when everybody starts to question, like, damn, like, does Israel have some type of influence over our government, over our politicians, individually with AIPAC, over a lot of our media, whether it's mainstream media or what's supposed to be an independent platform like Patrick Bet-David? We start to ask these questions because the way that these people behave. And I actually have let's get into it. Without further ado, let's get into it. That's just my view on it. Y'all make sure, I don't have to tell y'all, make sure y'all in the comments, lighten that up, giving y'all opinion. But let's get into this first video. I'm gonna hang in the corner and cover up myself. Let's get into it.
Thomas Cruz sent $50. Comments lit you up because PPL thinks you backpedaled on race and nerve it about moving past anger. What's your take on that sentiment? To me, it's LARPers wanting you to be something unrealistic, while they're taking a stance normies are more willing to consider openly. I think her aware of and using the opportunity. La La Land 10 pence by the way Ryan Gosling is so me.
Yeah, you know, at the end of the day, when it comes to that, we can't always be trying to please the most aggrieved element. You know, it has to move past a politics of resentment. It has to be more than that. So, yeah, I mean, look, people are going to be upset. People are not going to get it. But my job is to lead. My job is not to fill. And listen, you know, I know that I'm on a run right now. I'm very popular right now. And what happens when you get popular for one or another thing is then people start expecting you to be a people pleaser. And I'm not here to be a people pleaser. I'm here to be a leader. That means I'm right before everybody else. That's what it means to be a leader. It means I'm right. I'm right before everybody else. It means I see the whole vision. I am going to take you to the promised land. And you're not always going to get it. And you're not always going to like the way it sounds. And sometimes it's a little messy or clunky or something. But, you know, I never tell you, trust me. I never say, trust me, believe me. I say, watch me work. Have I ever said, no, guys, really, you need to trust me, and here's why. I say, you're with me or you're against me, but in a year, we'll see who's fucking right. I've always said that about everything. You know, in 2018, we were feuding with Richard Spencer and the right stuff, and people wanted me, oh, you got to debate Richard Spencer. I said, you know what? Let's just see where we are in a year. I said, let's just see where we are relative to each other, and we'll see who wins. You know, there's a lot of talk, and people talk, and you listen to what I say, and you form your, you know, opinion on it, even though you know half of what I know for the most part. I always say, don't believe me, don't trust me. I don't need you to believe me or trust me. I need you to watch me work. I will act, you will react. I will act, I will drive the conversation. You will be left a year later wondering how I predicted it. I will tell you the future today. I will pick apart the things that are incomprehensibly complex to you. You will watch, you will listen, you will react. And in a year, you will say, how did he get it? How did he predict it a year in advance? How does he know all this? You will be left wondering. So, you know, when I say what I say about race, which is we have to move beyond grievance and bitterness, if you take that as backpedaling, it shows you really don't understand what we're about, and you never did. It also shows you're just low IQ, to be honest, because bitterness and resentment is without content. You know, to say that the movement needs to be generative as opposed to resentful, it has very little to do with the actual essential principles. It has more to do with the tone, with the attitude. It has more to do with, you know, how the sentiment is expressed. And for people to say it's backpedaling to hop off of anger, grievance, you know, then what is the movement to be based on? Is the movement supposed to be about, you know, being resentful? Because I think resentment is bad, actually.
And just so to give y'all a heads up, Groypers, I know a lot of my other videos, I let Nick talk for a while and finish and then respond. This is a live show. It's going to be a little bit more interactive, so bear with me. This is just what we do. So everything that he started, and I don't know if y'all saw Maya's comment. The reason why she said y'all are so aligned is because this is what we preach. This is what, for a lot of y'all who don't know what OG means, it's out here getting it. All right. It's for people that accept accountability and responsibility to determine their own destiny, period. When he says, watch me work, when is the last time that you heard a politician say, I don't need you to trust me? Clearly from his rhetoric, what I'm attracted to is because he does not need you to like him. When people ask me like, yo, you like Nick Fuentes? Since when is that the first question that we ask when it comes to somebody that's pushing a political agenda, somebody that's pushing a movement, looking to advance people forward? Have you ever heard do you hear people say, yo, do you like your dad? You may hear that maybe you said more about mom or something like that, but that's not what a leader's role is supposed to be. You're not supposed to be like, the first thing that somebody thinks about is whether or not they like you. How do they think? What are their principles? Where do they align on these key issues that are important to me? He says that he believes in America first. Let's actually see how genuine that is based on the things that he's been talking about, the things that he's been putting into action over the last years. When he says, don't even trust me, give me a year and then see where I'm at. What politician moves like that? Most of the politicians, what do they say? Oh, well, in the past, I didn't have enough power and influence, but I'm listening to the people now. So therefore, I'm going to be able to make these changes for y'all moving forward. And then what do they do when they get in office? It doesn't matter whether it's Barack pandering to black people. It doesn't matter whether it's Kamala Harris pandering to black people. It doesn't matter whether it's Trump pandering to the America First movement. They say all these things, right? And then when they finally get in office, it's like, damn, what happened? I thought you were going to do this. I thought you were going to do that. Now you're changing your tune. You were selling us on one thing. But then when we purchase the product, we get it home and it doesn't work the way that you told us it would work. This is what politics should be. Politics should be, let's just evaluate you on your actions. And even if you don't agree exactly with Nick Fuentes' stand, think about just the principle of it, where we're going to be now holding people accountable to doing things. The standard is going to change. The standard is going to no longer be what you can promise me. The standard is going to be, what have your actions shown in the past? What do we say all the time? What's the best? Well, I forget the saying. I don't even know if it is a saying, but what's the best predictor of the future, right? Your past. How do we completely remove this when it comes to, when we look at politics, the people that are going to make the decisions that are going to impact our lives the most? Let's keep going.
Resentment is not healthy. It can be warranted. It can be valid. You have a right to feel resentful, but you don't have a right to be motivated by resentment. You don't have a right to harbor and feed resentment and to be animated by it exclusively or even mostly. So, so to say that's a backpedal is just ignorant. What people want to hear, people just always want fire and brimstone. What you got to understand about the mood of the country now is people, especially on the right wing, they want to be pandered to. And the shape that the pandering takes is always more extreme, always more ridiculous, always more, who's the most? Well, I don't believe anything's real. Well, I think all black people need to go. I think they're all pedophiles. I think they're all transsexual, pedo, Freemason, satanic, Illuminati freaks, So there is this like toxic element on the right, this toxic pole. I don't think actually that the truth is always more conspiratard, always more hateful, always more exclusionary, always more prideful, resentful. It's a competition of who could be the angriest white man. I'm not trying to win that competition. What I want is for the Republican Party to recognize the distinct ethnic interests of the white people and the heritage of America. And I think there is a way to incorporate that into a bigger vision that is generative, that is propositionally positive. But I'm not in the running for the angriest white man competition, who could be the angriest, the most resentful, who could make the most excuses. You know, who could say if the shoe were on the other foot the most times? You know, who's going to capitalize the W in white the most? Who can beat their chest the loudest? I'm not running in that competition. Okay. So, you know, look, we want to be the center. We want to win. We want to endear the entire country to ourselves. We want to build a coalition and rule America eventually. And for that to take shape, we need everybody to be on board, okay? We need it to become undeniable, like that what we're saying is so true and so obviously the vision that it's just like a foregone conclusion. You know, when they say we're all Keynesians now, we're all liberals now. One day we need to say we're all traditionalists now, or Groypers or nationalists, whatever shape it will take. And we also need to attract a certain group of people. We need to attract people that are high in openness. We need to attract people that are innovators. We need to attract people that are progressive, that are forward thinking. Who is going to build our society for us? Have you ever thought of that? Who will make the new symphonies? Who will make the new cathedrals? Who will invent the futuristic cities, the new aqueducts, who will write the poetry? Are these people that are going to be grumbling Matt Walsh's bitching about anti-white racism? No. No. The people that are going to build our future for us, the people that are going to build our revival civilization, they're going to be people that need to hear a different sort of message, an uplifting message, a message that looks upward, that points upward, an ascendant message. And to enlist those people, to get those people on board, to get buy-in with those people, look, they're of a different nature, a different stock, caliber, whatever you want to say, and they're going to need a different kind of message. So if the message is always going to be grumbly, knuckle dragging, did you capitalize the W in white? I'm white, I'm pissed off. You know, it's going to be a very narrow appeal. It's going to appeal to a very narrow substrate of people. And honestly, how much mileage are you going to get out of that kind of a crowd?
I got to pause it real quick. All right, so let me paraphrase. Pretty much, when you appeal to people's resentment, think about the politicians. Think about what the liberals do. Think about what the conservatives do. That's what he's calling out. On the liberal Democrat side, how do they appeal to our resentment? They tell all of these minority groups that the reason why you're not treated fairly, that this is a racist society. It's white supremacy. Black people, the reason why you're in the place that you're in is because of slavery. We still owe y'all reparations. We'll talk about it before the election, but clearly we're not going to do anything when we actually get in office, as has been presented by Kamala Harris. Well, Kamala Harris came out outwardly and said she's not doing it, but you've heard a lot of other politicians use this. When you pander to somebody's resentment, you're getting them emotionally engaged in voting. So therefore, they don't have to think about it from a logical sense. Somebody doesn't have to sit back and say, damn, this person has been in politics for a while. Why are they just now waking up and realizing all these things? Why did they not do them when they were governor? Why did they not do them when they were in Congress? Why did they not previously do these things? Were they not aware of them? But we'll push all the logic to the side and embrace the emotions of it just because we're so pissed off at the other side. This is when you hear nonsense like, well, anybody but Trump. This is when you hear people when you break down, like I've done in the past before, where we look at, let's break down the top 10 topics of this election. Let's look at what Trump is saying that he'll do. Let's look at what Kamala Harris or Biden is saying that they'll do. This is the conservative side. This is the liberal side. And when you sit down with somebody and they realize like, damn, I agree more with the conservative stuff. And then when you ask them if they would ever consider voting Republican or voting for Trump, it's absolutely not. The reason why is because emotionally they just don't like him, because they've been painted a picture by MSNBC, by mainstream media, that that person's a racist, that that person is the reason why you wake up angry every day. That person is the reason why you don't have as much money in your bank account as you want. They trick you with that nonsense. And then they pander to your resentment with the social programs, with all these other things that ultimately land you in a worse place than you would have been than when you started. Because just like sports, y'all know I relate everything to sports, that coach that you may not like, that's hard on you, that gives you that tough love, they get the most out of you compared to the person or the coach that just says, oh, you're great, you're amazing. How many kids get told they're amazing in high school, and then because they never had any structure and discipline and any real coaching with constructive criticism and pressure and accountability that they're forced to uphold, then they go to college and they can't handle it. This is the difference. And what he's talking about on the conservative end, the conservatives like to pander too, because with all the black fatigue and all these other things that we're facing, you see a push for white people now embracing this victimhood. White people are now upset, saying the rules have been stacked against me. And this is what happens. It goes back and forth. When you play in this victimhood Olympics, when one group wins, the other group embraces it. When the other group wins, the other group embraces it. And then all you do is have this back and forth of ideologies that are built on resentment and emotions rather than logic and moving the country forward. So therefore, the people that end up winning, they're the people that are actually dividing us to conquer us. It's the elites. It's the politicians that claim that they hate Donald Trump and Donald Trump is a Nazi. But then Barack Obama's sitting next to him and giggling with him. Meanwhile, we're ready to go to war with each other. This is what happens. Let's keep going.
You know, there's a certain crowd that all they want to hear is that, and their mind becomes filled up with that. Their mind becomes filled up with grievances and complaints, and, you know, and that for them, that's politics. How many of you have any creative solutions to any problems? Can you name one? How many of you have any creative solutions to any problem? A national security problem, a tech problem, a business problem. We all know what we're against. Do you know what we're for? How are we going to make all this work? Do we have any ideas? I'm interested in people that have ideas. I'm interested in people that are thinking about those questions rather than being filled with grievance, resentment. You know.
And I want to address one of the comments. I want to address Bass's comment. Can we call it nigga fatigue because black people are actually chill as F? This is one of those comments. Now, nobody knows whether Bass is white, black. Let's act like Bass is, and see, this is part of the problem. And I'm not saying Bass is part of the problem, but this, based on the environment that we are in, based on the sensitive environment that we are in, do we have to adjust our approach in order to get a different result? I'm going to explain. This is exactly what Nick is saying in this entire speech, in my opinion. If I just pander to the angry white crowd, then we're never going to actually be able to move things forward. I have to figure out, yes, I use certain rhetoric. Yes, I'm performative. Yes, I've used a lot of this performative language to gain a following, to perhaps do what he's telling people that we can't just base this revolution on. Resentment. Perhaps Nick was also using these things to gain his audience, which is now why he's trying to pivot. This is what he's saying if you read between the lines. So let's address this comment. The fact that we look at this differently, and the fact that the first question that comes to mind, just being totally honest, is, damn, is Bass white or black? How do I feel about this? But then I snap out of it. I'm telling y'all, this is the process that I go through. Because we all get emotionally a little bit, it catches us emotionally, it triggers us. It's like, yo, this white person, whoa, yo, you white saying nigga? And then what does it does? It moves us away from the conversation. But Bass, I'm gonna try to be an example of what I think we'd all be better off. And let me just be straight, what I think Black people would be better off with. If we remove the emotion, if we remove a lot of the power that we give this word when other people say it, and we end up ready to crash out and put ourselves in compromising and vulnerable positions just because of a word. To each their own. Y'all may say you're defending your ancestors' legacy. Cool, all that's cool. I'm just telling y'all from my perspective. So when we look at this, can we call it nigga fatigue because Black people are actually chill as F? I don't know how long everybody here has been following me, but Maya, I'm sure she'll be able to agree with this. I've said this. I've said this. So can I get mad at if Bass is white for saying the same thing? Some people may feel that that's justified, me getting mad at him for that. Or do I actually listen to what is being said, process it, and adjust accordingly? I remember reading some book. I forget exactly what the book was. Maybe it may have been even like a Patrick Bet-David. I don't know. Whatever. The book was talking about how you use your enemies. Maybe it was the 48 Laws of Power. It was using your enemies, and because your enemies can give you some of the best advice. The people that dislike you can give you some of the best advice because they're going to tell you something. They're going to shoot it to you straight in ways that the people that are your friends will never tell you. So let me get back to this point. Yes, it's absolutely nigga fatigue. I've made posts where I say I can't stand niggas. Black people who are mature and responsible can't stand niggas, if we're just being honest. I can remember, and hopefully my dad, hopefully it's okay for me to say this, but I remember, I think, if I'm not mistaken, my dad receiving advice from my grandmother saying, mind you, don't act like a nigga. But see, the problem with us getting so emotionalized with this word is we end up protecting the worst representations of our culture. And then we end up with a culture that leads us down the wrong path, that influences our kids, that influences us as adults, that has us doing what? Close your eyes and think about what you imagine, what comes to mind when you think about Black culture. We know there's a difference between the two. We know there's a difference between Black people and I'm going to show a couple videos when we talk about this National Guard and Brandon Johnson. How many videos did we show of Brandon Johnson and the city council meetings where they had Black people in Chicago calling out Brandon Johnson? Matter of fact, they were saying he was being a nigga. One lady on there called him one. Black people, I'm glad that you, regardless of what this message is, I'm glad that you've noticed the difference. Because perhaps that's the thing that is actually racist, not understanding that there's a huge difference between Black people and niggas. And there's white niggas too. There's niggas in every race. There's super ignorant people in every single race. And there's a difference. And when you start to hold your group accountable, when you start to hold the people around you accountable for something, that's the only way to change it, in my opinion. You say something about Black people, we're willing to crash out and defend literally the worst representations. The drill music. We'll defend drill music that's literally talking about killing other Black men, right? Black men killing other Black men. I just had a conversation with my bro who surprised me down in Miami, him and my sis yesterday, and he's a detective. Yeah, shout out to Detective Wash, new detective in Essex County. Congratulations. And he was talking about how the most dangerous, hopefully this is okay to talk about, but we were talking about how the most dangerous kids that he has to worry about are the 12, 13, 14, and 15-year-old kids. Those are the ones that when you're maybe involved in something where you're like, yo, their minds are so gone that those are the ones that may up on you. Those are the ones that you may have to worry about. really doing something dangerous and violent when you're approaching them. They're kids. They're kids that have absorbed a nigga culture. And then we see what happens when they're willing to crash out and their brains are not fully developed and how that culture impacts them. But see, black people would rather defend, you can't say this, you can't, no, this person. Black people would rather defend that, just being totally honest, than actually extend half of that energy towards addressing the problems that are wrong with our culture. My fault. I didn't mean to stop the video for that long, but I just wanted to use that as an example. There's a difference. There's a difference. Now, what I would say to Bass is, and I don't know, I'm sure that he's been writing in the comments, but what I would say to Bass is, maybe I wouldn't say anything to Bass. Matter of fact, I would leave it just like that. I would leave it just like that. I would leave it just like that. Let's keep moving.
Oh. And we need a cadre of political operatives that are going to be ideologically rigorous and aligned. And yeah, you could say those are more grievance-oriented people. We're going to need a lot of very political people, very ruthless people, lawyers, people on political campaigns. We need operators. And yeah, many of them are going to be tough and they're going to be pissed. We're also going to need inventors. We're also going to need scientists. We're also going to need artists. We're going to need to enlist another kind of clientele too. And to have a truly visionary leader, you need someone that can kind of have both. And by both, I don't mean like this and this. I mean, you need to kind of have a vision where you take the grievance and you translate it into a vision. You take the righteous indignation, which we're all feeling. We're all feeling negative. We're all feeling the slow decay, the death of our civilization. It's oppressive. It's an oppressive energy. We all feel the kind of hopelessness that we're out of options, backed into a corner. And the question is, how do you take that sentiment and transmute it? It's like an alchemy. How do you, and not actually, but how do you transform that into a positive vision? How do you take a negative and turn it into a positive? Turn it into a public works program, turn it into a cathedral in the city square. How do you take a problem and turn it into a solution? Take a grievance, a negative, I'm against this, and turn it into I'm for this. You know, and conservatives are very good at telling everybody what they're against. What are they for? You know, the conservatives have turned into, and look, this is tough love. You're not going to want to hear this. But we as a movement have turned into, just like the left, a politics based on resentment only. You see a lot of this on the right wing. What did Ted Kaczynski say, characterize the left wing? He said the left wing is a pathology. It is characterized by feelings of resentment. I feel like there's a phenomenon on the right that is this way too. I watch every Matt Walsh show. It's just resentment. Just resentment. Just chip on the shoulder, thinly veiled anger, impotent fantasies of violence. And, you know, what can you do with this? You know, there needs to be a leader that steps up and says, you know, what's actually a solution? How do we move forward? We can't turn back the clock. We can't undo what has been done. That doesn't mean we can't make changes, but this idea like we're all going to pretend like it's the 30s again. We're all going to pretend like it's the 20s again. The people that we don't like, we have fantasies of violence and we're going to make them shut up. And then what? And then what happens the next day? You know, I actually think there's a lot of good things about this country. I like Hollywood. I don't like necessarily the messaging of the movies, but without question, Hollywood is one of the wonders of the world. Silicon Valley is one of the wonders of the world. You know, this is a great country. We have great things. How do we make it work? How do we make it better? And so, you know, to say that's a backpedal, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm actually against backpedaling itself. I'm against pedaling forward. I am a progressive. We should have visions. We should be kept awake at night, not just about how angry we are in this pit in our stomach. We should be kept awake at night also by our dreams. You know, do we have dreams? Do we have the audacity to dream about a better future? Or do we just have these kind of revenge fantasies where we hurt the people that hurt us in our perception? And don't get me wrong, I mean, we're going to have to put some people in jail. Like, yeah, that part of the dream is that, yes, people will be deported, people will go to jail, but what else do you do on top of that? You know? So anyway, so that's really the question, because I look at a lot of these people like an Elon Musk, like a Peter Thiel, and say what you want about them. And yeah, on some level, they are like cutouts, excuse me, for the CIA or intelligence. But what you envy about the Silicon Valley guys is they're innovators. What you envy about, say what you want about their politics. Yeah, they're pro-immigration, they're pro-free markets, they're too pro-free markets, they're too libertarian. But the venture capital mindset, I don't hate the mindset. They're entrepreneurial. They invest in risky things. They invest in ideas. They make magazines. Like they're doing things. We should do things too, you know? And that's my challenge to all of you. So
Imagine if Barack Obama was giving this speech. Everybody would be soaking it up, saying he's one of the greatest orators that we've ever seen. He really is passionate about moving forward all of America. Y'all tell me, matter of fact, Groyper's in the chat. Y'all tell me, is this a completely different message than what Nick Fuentes was delivering years ago? Because I just want to remind people, I believe he just turned 28 a couple weeks ago, or 27. He's been doing this for the last, matter of fact, he may have just turned 27. He's been doing this since he was 17, 18 years old. This man can't get a bank account. He's canceled on every single platform besides Rumble, I believe. And he just got reinstated at X when Elon got it back. But this is what he's been pushing. And my fault, my apologies. First off, I got to acknowledge, first and foremost, I got to acknowledge the love that we just got. Shout out to my sis Francesca Albini. Shout out to Fran in the building. Shout out to my brother Paul Froelich. I want to make Froelich. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it correctly. Just found you. Please keep saying exactly what you think of Nick's message and how he can improve his message to all well-meaning Americans. I really appreciate the second part of that as well, how he can improve his message to all well-meaning Americans. There's nothing, I think that he's doing a lot of these thoughts, like self-reflecting, I guess would be the right word. I think he's doing a lot of this on his own. And I think that's a big telltale sign of people that are really passionate about uniting America. We always hear people talk about the country and act as if they're trying to do something for everybody. But to me, one of the biggest telltale signs in which you're exhibiting that with your actions is by constantly asking yourself, am I delivering this message the right way to accomplish the goal that I want to accomplish? And I think that's what he's doing. So shout out to y'all. Shout out to y'all. Let's keep going. I forgot I already lost my daggone train of thought as far as what I wanted to address, but what about him? You know, I think I asked the Groypers, is this the message? What about this do people have a problem with? See, people don't have a problem. People do have a problem with his message. I was getting ready to say people don't have a problem with his message. People have a problem with his message because he has a huge influence. But what it does is it holds Democrats and Republicans to a higher standard. You know how you're on the job and somebody else, let's say you're just used to doing the bare minimum at work, and somebody else comes into the job and they start pressing, like they're getting the stuff that you used to get done in a week, in a day. they're conducting themselves in a better way. They are holding themselves to a higher standard. The company's mission statement, let's say the company's mission statement is America first, fighting for America. That's the mission statement. They're coming in with an energy that is pushing the company's mission more than you've been pushing the company's mission. What does that make everybody else on the job do? It makes them mad because now you're holding them to, you're setting the standard. You reset the standard. So now they're going to be held accountable, because what happens when the bosses start to come in? Now the bosses are looking at it like, oh, we thought that this work could only be done in a week. We thought that that was solid. Now we're seeing Nick come in here and do this in a week. Nick comes in with a certain mindset. Nick comes in with a different outlook on this. Nick's coming in with action. Nick wants accountability. He's taking more of the role, more responsibilities. Everybody else is going to get pissed off because it holds them to a higher standard. This is what's happening with a lot of these politicians. This is what's happening with a lot of the political commentators. This is why Charlie Kirk doesn't want to talk to him. This is why Piers Morgan won't platform him. This is why Patrick Bet-David won't platform him. Because all these people that talk their ish and act as if they're pushing something forward, when they get in a room with Nick, the energy is going to change. The energy is going to change, and it's going to have the people that follow them looking at them funny, looking at them different. Like, whoa, you were pushing this, but now it's like when Nick gets in the room, oh, we found somebody who's pushing it even more, maybe with a better strategy. They're worried. They're nervous. They're nervous about him. All right, let's keep going.
And like I said, I'm going to lead by example. We will show you the better future. We will show you the vision. We'll show you the way. And we'll endear people to our side, not just because we make some complaint about Israel, but because eventually we will have the vision. That's the goal. That's how you take it to the next level. Yeah, like this idiot in a live chat says, flat out create a new NSDAP Nazi party. Yeah, great idea, dude. This is what I'm talking about. We should just make another Nazi party like Hitler. Oh, yeah, true.
Dwight Andrews said $11. If Vance wins 2028, what are the main things we will get from his administration?
It's just like this low IQ knucklehead stuff. It's just got to be driven out. It can't be allowed to dominate. There must be a sustained effort at the very top to suppress that shit brutally and with discrimination, with prejudice. Okay? Because it's embarrassing. You look at the Jews and say what you want about them, but they're venture capitalists. They learn the language. They learn AI. They learn autonomous systems. They learn nuclear energy. And what do our knuckleheads do? They say, we should do the Nazi thing again. What if we did black shirts and we did swastika flag and we march around? And you're like, look at my Nazis, dog. This is fucking pathetic. We need architects. We need musicians. We need engineers. We need geniuses. I'm more interested in those, actually. We're back being Dark Groiper. It was fun on the generational run. I'm ready to be the villain again. It was fun being the hero. It was fun being, most likely to be president for a day. It's time to be the villain again. And I'm going to excoriate the audience. Here is the problem. Last year, during the 2024 election, it was obvious that Trump was going to sell us down the river. It was obvious because he was telling us. He told us in June of last year that we were going to staple green cards to diplomas. When they pressed him about mass deportations, he said, we're going to take out the violent criminals first. We'll worry about the rest later. Okay, the writing was on the wall. He picked a never Trumper, J.D. Vance. The writing was on the wall. Silicon Valley, Wall Street, the Israel lobby, they all lined up behind him. It was obvious where this was going. And in spite of that, you all voted for him. I told you exactly what would happen. I said, we're going to go to war with Iran. I said, we are not getting mass deportations. I said, and we're going to empower the next generation of neocons like J.D. Vance. And you all told me, well, it's better than the Democrats. Well, it's the lesser two evils. We got to vote for Trump. It's going to be a golden age. And look what happened. Here we are. You voted. America decided. Trump became the president. And look at what has happened. Corporate tax cut. $12 billion for Israel. We're at war with Iran. We're at war with Yemen. Mass deportations have yet to materialize. They're deporting people criticizing Israel. They're going after immigrants that criticize Israel, taking citizenship from people that criticize Israel. They held Harvard and Columbia and all the Ivy Leagues hostage because they're criticizing Israel too much. They brought TikTok back, but with pro-Israel censorship. It's endless. They can do all this for them, all this for Silicon Valley and the corporations in Israel. They can do nothing for us. Nothing for us. Have they banned seed oils? No. Have they banned pesticides? No. They've walked all that back. Have they done an infrastructure bill? No, and they're not going to. Have they made home ownership affordable? Have they made student debt manageable? No and no. Have they brought down inflation? No. Inflation's ticking back up. Prices are high. Housing is still expensive. Have they done the deportations? Absolutely not. They're actually carving out, saying we're going to let people stay if they're working on farms or in hotels or in hospitality or in restaurants or in construction. They can stay. They can get a special visa. They could get an H-1A visa. We're not going to deport them. Okay? So this bargain, it isn't working for us. They're getting everybody's information in the Palantir database. Palantir has gone up 100%. And now we're 3 years out from the next election, and Groyper start to say, fuck J.D. Vance. Maybe I'll vote for Newsom, just on account of he's a fat loser and this administration sucks. And what are people saying? Oh, geez, dude, but the Democrat is so bad, too. Ah, geez, dude, but we can't. The Democrat's terrible, but the Democrat's liberal. Oh, but you're going to vote for Newsom? Nah, but Newsom's not it. Do you get it? This is how they keep you contained, okay? This is how they keep you controlled. This is how they keep you brainwashed. What if we just didn't vote? Yeah, and yes, that means a Democrat would win. So what? So what? A Democrat did win. And Republicans, by the way, did nothing to stop it. You think Republicans give a shit if Democrats get in power? They really don't. When the election was stolen for Trump, did Republicans do anything? Did they do anything to prevent that from happening? Do you know Trump's entire legal counsel during Stop the Steal, they didn't even give a shit? The Republican House and Senate, the Republican-controlled state legislatures, they did nothing because it's really not that bad for them. And then the Democrats, when Biden crashed out and it was apparent that Trump would win, did the Democrats care? No. You know what the Democrats said? They said Trump will win and it's okay. We'll live. Literally, that's what they were saying. They're not even pretending anymore. So isn't it interesting? At the highest level, they just trade. The Republicans and Democrats, they're on and off. Sometimes they're in power, sometimes they're not, but they're still good. And they're all friends with each other. And they all know that it's all going to be okay. No one really cares. And the billionaires, they go between Republican and Democrat. They support one year, another the next. It's down here on this level that we have to kill each other. We're having these debates. Gavin Newsom's a woke race communist. Trump is based. Dude, these are arguments that we are having down here among the people that don't matter.
I have to interrupt. All right, a couple different points. When he said Dems don't care if Republicans win, Republicans don't care if Democrats win, think about it. It almost removes responsibility off of, I'll give you an example. All right, so Kamala Harris. Of course, Kamala Harris wanted to win, right? But do you think Gavin Newsom really wanted Kamala Harris to win? Kamala Harris wins this election and she runs the next time. And then what? Gavin Newsom. So, okay, that's an individual person. Okay, let me take it a step back. When Democrats are in power or Republicans are in power, let's say when Republicans are in power, Democrats now can play on your emotions because you're just pissed off. You're pissed off. So now now they can blame something. They can blame, well, Donald Trump's in office. This is why you got to vote for us. This is why you guys got to get out and vote. Look what Donald Trump's doing. Look at this. Look at that. But when you actually get in office, all that stuff that you were saying, now you actually are responsible for doing it. It's like, how many times I said this example before where y'all ever been on a sports team where all right, so there's certain kids on the sideline that never play. It's like the backup, right? The backup quarterback, the backup whatever. The backup quarterback, he's talking ish about what he would do if he would get in the game and be the starter. It's real easy to talk ish from the sideline. But when you actually get in the game, that's when the bullets are flying. That's when things are actually happening. That's when that other team is trying to kill you. It's no longer practice. You're not going against the practice team. It's easy for people to talk from the sideline. It's like the armchair quarterback and say, man, they're terrible. If I was in the game, if I was this. But then when you get in the game and you're so surprised that you won, it's like, whoa, I didn't study the playbook. Damn, this speed is moving a lot faster. Like, this is a lot different than practice. So it's almost like Democrats have and Republicans, they both have this like safety blanket when the other wins. And it's a safety blanket of not having the power at the current time to do certain things. This is like when Trump just won, Ayanna Pressley and a whole bunch of Democrats, they decided to make a push now for reparations, for Black people to receive reparations. It's like you had 4 years of Joe Biden in office and you never wanted to ask your friend, the person on your side, for reparations for you and your people. But then when Donald Trump wins, then no, we're making a stand. We're pushing for reparations. It makes no sense. These people are completely delusional, and us following them just makes us delusional. Us following them just does exactly what Nick's talking about, has us hating each other, fighting at the ground level like peasants, while the people up above, they just look down at us and laugh. They're all friends with each other. They don't care. It's like playing basketball at the YMCA. Yeah, you hate the other team when you're going against them, but afterwards, y'all probably go grab drinks. If the other team, you need the other team, right? If they're not there, you're not going to have a game. So just something interesting. And when it comes to J.D. Vance, listen to this. All right, so listen to this. He said this in a different video when it comes to J.D. Vance. So a lot of people maybe not really understand why he hates J.D. Vance so much. And it's because his affiliation with a guy like Peter Thiel, who was Elon Musk's former partner, and this technocrat revolution. So J.D. Vance, even when you think about his book, this Hillbilly, I forget what the name of it is. And then think about it. He had that movie come out. I thought that the movie that he had on Netflix came out right before the election. Then when I looked it up, I think it came out in 2020. So here he had a movie come out in 2020. He had a book come out clearly before that because they based the movie on the book, and nobody even knew who he was. He wasn't even relevant. If he wasn't going to be Trump's vice president, he wouldn't even have been relevant. But you get a guy like Peter Thiel putting $15 million behind him. And it's like, damn, why is J.D. Vance so valuable to the conservatives in the Republican Party? J.D. Vance is so valuable to them for the same reason that Barack Obama was valuable to the Democrats, for the same reason that Kamala Harris they thought was valuable to the Democrats, because they can use their background to appeal to a particular group. Now, what do I mean by that? Barack Obama, yeah, now every single Black person, now we don't care. Nobody even knew what was going on. Nobody even knew what Barack's policy was, nothing. We just voted for him because he's Black. A whole bunch of women, they just voting for Kamala because she's a woman. J.D. Vance, if you look at his upbringing, what he does is he gives conservatives and Republicans the ability to tell to tell almost the story of like, let's say like a Ben Carson. This is why conservatives like certain black people that pulled themselves up from their bootstraps. They come from poverty, but they pulled themselves up from bootstraps because now they can look at the liberals. Now they can look at these other arguments that they have and say, look, we have an example of Ben Carson. He was able to pull himself up by the bootstraps by accepting more conservative principles. J.D. Vance gives them the ability to talk to middle America, not just the elites. When you have a guy like Elon Musk, right? How do we see Elon Musk? As the elite, right? So how do conservatives reach out to middle America, maybe middle class and lower class white Americans? You show J.D. Vance's upbringing. Oh, he dealt with an abusive mother. He dealt with this. He dealt with that. He had a humble upbringing. They won't focus on that he went to Yale or focus on all these other things. They will focus on just these politicians. They use any and everything that they can do to appeal to us rather than just having logic in their politics. Just having logic in whatever. Okay, I want to do this. I want to move America from this point to this point. This is how I feel about immigration. This is how I feel about the economy. They don't care about that. They know that everything that they do is just how do I appeal to the emotions of this particular group. Sorry for rambling about that, but just wanted to kind of give my thoughts on it. Let me let Nick get back to it.
The people that don't make decisions, the people that don't have wealth, the people that don't have capital and don't have connections and don't know how anything works. It's down here that these ridiculous arguments are happening. Do you really think that's what is going to change politics, is a debate between Scott Presler and Harry Sisson? Seriously? Some sweaty, tall, effeminate homosexual and some liberal faggot cuck on the other side, and they're going to debate about policies? Republican presidents are good. Democrat presidents are bad. Like, we have to break out of this, guys. We have to break out of this matrix. That's not politics. Politics is not voting reliably for the party you align with. Like, nominally, that you nominally align with. Politics is when you group up. Politics is when you all get fucking pointy sticks and raise a flag. That's politics. Politics is when you all draw a fucking triangle on your head or, wear a red bandana or a fucking green tunic. And you say, we're all going to wear a blue tunic and we all are going to get sharp sticks and we're all going to get together. That's politics. And you do something. Now, when I say that, that's not a weird insinuation of violence. What I'm saying is, politics is not, oh, I'm white, I'm conservative, I'm voting Republican. Politics is when a group of people get together and say, let's say for the sake of argument, let's say there's 1 million Groypers. There was a poll that was conducted today. It said, I have a 6% approval rating in America. People say, that's funny. It's not that funny. Because 6% of 300 million? What's 1/5? Or 1/20th, I should say. What's 1/20th of 300 million? It's a lot of people. And let's just use that for the sake of argument. What if all those people said, we're going to write in a protest candidate? 1 million people is enough to flip an election, a close election. 1 million people is enough to become a problem, especially if they're in one place. What if that 1 million people was dispersed across the swing states? What if 1% of those 1 million people showed up to canvass in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada? And what if that 6% or that 1% of that 6%, what if they were acting in unison as a block? And what if they said, we won't vote unless? We will spoil it. We should be for Republicans because we're white, we're conservative. We will spoil it for Republicans unless. That's politics. Politics is not, oh, we vote for Republicans every year. That's like a sports team. That's like I always root for the Bills. I always root for my Cubbies. No, politics is when you get together and use your power and say, this is us. These are our demands. That's what I've sought to do in every election for the past few cycles. And my goal is to get big enough that eventually we're going to be able to make a difference. And I think this is going to be the one. I think 2028 is going to be the one where we summon enough groypers that it will actually make a difference. And then it's a whole different ball game. Because I do this show and you can bitch about the issues. You could be on the show and you can say, I don't like what they're doing. I am outraged. No one cares. But when you summon 500 people to a state and they're all working as volunteers and you have donations coming in, you're putting them up in hotels and they do what you say and you do some new different thing and you say, you know, we're a free agent. It's a totally different ball game. You wait and you watch and you'll see. But this is what they hate. Why do you think they freaked out so much? They hate the idea that the people know their power. They hate the idea that the people would break out of the matrix and say, Republican, Democrat, how about neither? I'm a free agent. Now, that by itself isn't powerful, but when the free agents get together and say, we're united behind one mission, one agenda, we can swing either way, pause, where we could go either way, that's the idea they don't like.
Is this Nick Fuentes or Malcolm X? Is this Nick Fuentes or Malcolm X? Is this the speech that Malcolm X gave, the ballot and the bullet? Is this what Malcolm X was talking about when he was saying black people shouldn't just be married to the Democratic Party just because? When he said that, well, we look at the foxes, the Democrats are the foxes, the case with the foxes and the wolves, the Republicans are the wolves, or the conservatives he used. Now he said, well, we know the conservatives don't like us per se, right? But the Democrats, they're the foxes that smile in your face and then rip you to shreds. Now, I think the main takeaway why I said, is this Nick Fuentes or Malcolm X? Because I think the main takeaway is because you should not be married to any political party. How many times have we said on this show, stop looking at this like a sports team? You're rooting for Democrats and Republicans like you're rooting for the Cowboys, the Giants. They're not the best team. They're probably not going to win the Super Bowl this year. Maybe if you were looking at it differently, like think about during the time when the Patriots had their run with Brady, when they were going to the Super Bowl 10 out of 20 years. If we looked at sports like we looked at politics, we probably would have said, why would I root for the Cowboys? Like, why are the Cowboys the most popular team? The Patriots are winners, and they're winners because they follow the right principles of do your job. Embracing accountability. I shared my experience with the Patriots when I went up there to for my tryout when I got released from the Colts. I shared that experience with them, and I got to see their culture of why they are winners. It all made sense. It's a certain level of accountability. So when you have a mindset of looking at stuff just like a sports fanatic, looking at the Democratic Party, looking at the Republican Party, we sit back and wonder how things get so radicalized. We sit back and wonder how a baby boomer, a baby boomer father and mother can be okay with voting for a party that is condoning having boys play sports against girls, that is condoning a party that's promoting little boys to go through this transgender movement, which is a mental health crisis, in my opinion, but they're condoning it. They're pushing it. They got books in kids' schools that are showing how boys please other boys sexually. These are the baby boomers. Do you know what your parents would have said about that? But I'm not trying to just come at the liberal side, even though y'all know my bias. I'm conservative. I'm more conservative currently. But when you have this mindset, you don't make logical decisions. You become so radicalized that your party can do all this insane stuff. You may not agree with half of it. You may not agree with more than half of it. But because you're so emotionally engaged and you're such a fanatic of that particular team, you vote for them blindly. And what does that tell them? Now we got them hooked. We could do whatever for them. That's the reason why they promise you all these things. And then when they get in office, they don't do anything for you. This is the reason. We say a lot of stuff, just like Nick said, we say a lot of stuff about, a lot of stuff said about Jewish people and whether or not they're influencing the government and this and that. Perhaps instead of complaining, we need to actually figure out how they're influencing it, how they're able to unite and leverage a lot of these politicians. Why can't, they got this AIPAC lobby group. Okay, well, let's figure out how to make one for ourselves. Jewish people apply pressure in ways that force these politicians. I'll give you an example. A lot of people may not even know about this, but y'all know how there's like minority-owned businesses. You get certain advantages by being a minority-owned businesses. I think it's Black Americans, Asian Americans, and maybe like one other group, maybe Hispanic Americans or Latino, whatever the proper name is. When Biden was leaving office, he put something in play. A lot of people aren't even aware of this, where now Jewish people are considered to get the same benefits or whatever benefits they get under this minority-owned business advantage that the Blacks, Asians, Hispanics get, right? Think about that. Trump, when he came into play, he got rid of a whole bunch of, when Trump got into office, he got rid of a whole bunch of stuff, but he didn't get rid of that. He got rid of all these policies that, this DEI, this isn't right here. This isn't right here. He didn't touch that. Now, are Jewish people a race? Is it an ethnicity? Is it a religion? Put that to the side. What I'm focusing on is how they strategically get stuff done. We don't unite. We don't use the same. We do not use our leverage. And that's what I hear him saying when he's talking about it. So we can get emotionally upset. We can talk ish. We can do all these things, but it's not going to change the situation. We can call this stuff out. It doesn't matter.
As long as you vote Republican, they don't give a shit.
All right. All right. So that's the end of that. Let's move on to, I know that we said that we were going to do Patrick Bet-David interview with Netanyahu first. I actually want to pivot, I think, and go to this DC situation. I want to go to this DC situation, if I may. If I may pivot, I want to go to this DC situation because I think it just aligns with a lot of the things that we're talking about. Of course, the Bibi Netanyahu interview does as well. But I want to get to this. So a lot of people, and I'm not even probably as informed as most people on this situation with Trump bringing the National Guard into DC, and now he's saying that he may bring it into Chicago. And the reason why I'm not as maybe informed about it is because I haven't been paying a lot of attention to it. Like I don't understand why people are like, write in the comments, what's the pushback? Like, why do people have a problem with Trump bringing the National Guard into DC and Chicago? Please just write all of the reasons. Write all of the reasons why people have a problem. Write all of the reasons why people have a problem, because then, and I'll even tell you what my follow-up question is going to be. Are all of those reasons justified, or I should say justified, when you look at what's been going on in those cities? They call Chicago Chirac. Isn't that the place that made Barack Obama, that made him famous, that rose him to stardom, eventually becoming the president? They call it Chirac. The kids that are 12, 13, 14, they move with this demonic nature. They call it demon time, right? These kids are screaming for help. See, it depends on how you look at these situations in these areas with a lot of crime. See, when I look at these areas with a lot of crime, those are screams for help. We need help. They're not only screams for the kids that are clearly showing that they are misled and committing these violent acts, but do you think that the entire population that lives in those areas, do you think they're okay with those kids committing crimes? Do you think that the grandmas living in those neighborhoods or the guy that gets up every day and just goes to work, has to take the bus, do you think he wants to be walking around those neighborhoods? So once again, what are the complaints that we're hearing about why Trump shouldn't bring the National Guard in? And this, to me, this entire mindset on this entire thing is the reason why a lot of these federal workers are getting fired. This mindset and people having a problem with this. Now, this is just, maybe I'll watch these videos. I haven't even seen the entirety of these videos, just to be totally honest. I haven't seen the entire videos. Maybe I'll change my mind afterwards. But this is the reason why a lot of these federal workers, in my opinion, are getting fired. And why do I say this? Based on what I've looked at when it comes to a lot of these federal employees and how they do their end of the year evaluations and how things have just been passed along because different groups and politicians, they create these jobs. They go, oh, well, let's create a group that does this. Let's create a group that does this. They're not based on performance. See, this is what's so great about private jobs compared to the public sector. See, private people who own businesses, it's based on performance. Why? Because it's their money. It's either their money that they're losing or their money that they're making. When it comes to these public sector jobs, these government jobs, their performance does not matter as much because they're just receiving the money from the taxpayers or printing the money. It's not a performance-based system. I'm a sales guy. So when I look at the crime in Chicago, when I look at the crime in DC, and you have the mayors complaining about Donald Trump coming in and bringing the National Guard, you have not been able to solve the problem. So instead of getting upset at Donald Trump and staging petitions, Brandon Johnson, against Donald Trump coming into the city, why don't you do something? Stop complaining about, oh, we need more funding, we need more this. This is the same group of people that was running around screaming, defund the police. Now you're talking about, well, we need more money for this program, for that program. At a certain point, we're going to realize that throwing money at these problems is not going to fix them. And that you can't just, I don't know what level of accountability we hold these politicians to. Maybe this is what we should do. If, let's say that you're running for mayor and the budget is $20 million. I'm just throwing a number out there. That's what the budget is right now. That's what you have to work with. If you can't deliver on making the city safer with the budget as it is, then perhaps we should not be voting for you. You can't get into office and fail, and then just say, oh yeah, we need more money. We need more funding. Maybe we should just vote for somebody that has a proven track record of making things happen without just, oh, I need more money. I need more money. These mayors and governors are complaining about Trump going to a certain length or going to whatever extent, bringing the National Guard in to bring crime down in the city that they supposedly claim is already down. But people have been saying for years within the police department, there's been whistleblowers that saying they're just lying about these crime stats being down. I don't know about y'all, but I don't think most people are feeling any safer in these neighborhoods when they're walking through them in these cities. But the politicians, of course, they never have to walk through them. So therefore, they don't even care. A lot of the people that are sitting in the comfort of their home complaining about the National Guard going into these cities, you don't live in those cities. You don't have to experience what those people experience. Let's look at the videos.
In a row, D.C. crime stats and News 4's reporting on D.C. crime stats are in the spotlight. Yesterday from the White House and again overnight from the D.C. Police Union.
Yeah, the News 4 I-Team and Ted Oberg have been looking into the state of D.C. crime as the federal government takeover starts. So Ted's in with us in the studio for more context. Ted?
Yeah, Jim, look, we've shown you the decreases in violent crime that D.C. police report. You're familiar with these by now. Violent crime down 26%, homicide, assaults down as well. But we know you've also seen reporting from our own Paul Wagner, who broke the news that a D.C. police commander was suspended after MPD said he was changing crime stats to minimize serious crimes. The president brought this up in his news conference yesterday, and late yesterday afternoon, the White House linked to Paul's reporting in a press release they titled, "Yes, D.C. crime is out of control." They, in their press release, accused MPD of allegedly cooking the books to make crime statistics appear more favorable. Greg Pemberton, the chairman of D.C.'s police union, spoke with NBC's Garrett Haake overnight and said he doubts the decrease in crime in D.C. is as large as the police department is touting.
I think there's a potentially a drop from where we were in 2023. I think that there's a possibility that crime has come down. But the department is reporting that in 2024, crime went down 35%, violent crime, and then again another 25% through August of this year. That is preposterous to suggest that cumulatively we've seen 60+% drops in violent crime from where we were in 23, because we're out on the street. We know the calls we're responding to.
The commander being investigated is on leave and denied any wrongdoing. Yesterday, D.C. Police Pamela Smith was asked about all of this. She declined to comment, calling it an internal personnel matter. Today, our colleague Mark Seagraves asked Mayor Bowser.
I think that what Paul's reporting revealed is that the chief of police had concerns about one commander, investigated all 7 districts, and verified that the concern was with one person. So we are completing that investigation, and we don't believe it implicates many cases.
Of course you don't, because you're a Democrat. That's the side of the argument that you're on. You just got the police union chairman saying that they're exaggerating these numbers. I've looked at multiple videos that they discuss this on, and it's almost damn near like common sense at this point. It's almost like common sense. It's like, hey, if we can write this up as, instead of an assault, and if it goes in this category, then it doesn't count as a violent crime. Like, there's been plenty of whistleblowers on this issue. Let's actually ask the people what they think. So I want to now switch to this video. I think this was a Megyn Kelly video, but she actually was interviewing DC residents. Let's hear what they got to say.
Protection that we can get in the city, because the city is. We need all the protection that we can get in the city, because the city is really getting dangerous. A person like me at this age, I has to make sure to come home before sundown.
I enjoy having extra security. I think it's a good thing. I mean, you want to feel safe when you're out and about, especially females.
It's a good thing because it actually reinforces the fact that America is secure, safe, stable. As a moderate, as a centrist, I think something needs to be done. I have 3 kids. I'm about to start teaching next week. I want it to be safe.
I think this is long overdue. I've been one of the National Guards in this area for years. I like it. I love it. I feel safe already.
The mayor been in power so long, I think she's kind of used to how things are going, and I think Donald Trump really wants to clean it up, and I'm all for it.
The crime is outrageous, and you do feel unsafe. I don't know, what's going to occur, whether it's going to be really beneficial for us or not, but something needs to happen.
Every single one.
Do we need to show anything else? Do we need to show anything else? And this is what people are not recognizing, or just, it's like you don't care. If you live in a bad neighborhood, bro, bring whoever in, whoever they got going. See, it's a game to people that are looking from the outside in. It's a political game. It's not politics when you're actually living in these neighborhoods that are dangerous. Clean this up. Get these criminals off the street. Until it's your grandmother, until it's your somebody in your family getting hit by a stray bullet or whatnot, then you don't care. If the current government that is in the state and the cities cannot fix the problem, what else do we go to? What else do we go to? At a certain point, it's beyond your political affiliation. It's beyond your political affiliation. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. But I don't know. And that was not just Fox, that was CNN, that was MSNBC reporting on that stuff as well. Shout out to my brother Bass in the building. Bass wrote, in Baltimore 20 years ago, there was a scandal. They would count a triple homicide as one violent crime instead of 3. So all these low numbers the last 20 years are political lies. So there's another video. I'm not going to show y'all the entire video, but I'm not even going to show y'all the video. What I'll do is I'll put it on the screen. I was getting ready to show this one where they go through the lady that we just saw, but they're going through how they misclassified crimes. They go through how they misclassified crimes. And look at this statement. It's districts compete against each other to get the largest reduction in crime stats. That's what it was saying. So now you're competing against, of course, people are going to bend the rules. And who ends up suffering? The people. Now you're misleading people. Imagine you would be upset if somebody sold you a car. Did I actually show that on the screen? My fault. If I didn't show it on the screen, there it is. But you would be upset if somebody sold you a car where the brakes weren't, they said that the brakes were good. And then you get in the car and you realize that they just did something to make it seem like on the test drive that the brakes were good. But now you're putting yourself in danger, harm's way. You would be very upset. But here you can have these politicians, you can have these politicized police, right? Politicized police leaders who now want to make it seem like there's less crime in their areas, make it seem like this is a safer area than it was. And then you end up moving to this area. Your family ends up moving to this area. And what ends up happening? Now, because of those crime stats that they potentially, allegedly manipulated, you're thinking that this neighborhood is a lot safer than it was. Do you think that that's fair to the people? But this is when we get caught up in the whole back and forth. This is when we get caught up in all this back and forth stuff, right? Where we're not prioritizing the logic of the situation, where we can't even come together in two political parties to say, hey, there's too much crime. Democrats, y'all claim y'all care about black people, right? Black Lives Matter, right? Well, what about all the 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds that are not only throwing away their lives when they commit these crimes, but throwing away or destroying the lives of somebody else that they're committing these crimes against? We have a big issue with violence based on our culture, or based on whatever. It doesn't even matter what it's based on. It's a problem and it needs to be addressed. And you would think that we'd be able to come together to try to figure something out. If our politicians can't come together and try to figure something out, then we have the wrong politicians. If politicians hate each other to the point where they can't come together and say, hey, we got little kids dying out here. We got neighborhoods in DC, our nation's capital, in Chicago, where I think they have the highest prison population or jail population, one or the other, maybe both. How can we not come together in some of our most important cities in our country and figure out how to reduce crime in these areas? We're voting for the wrong people. We got the wrong people in politics. Let me, my fault. Dang, y'all really showing them, bro, love. If I missed any group chats, please let me know, but appreciate y'all showing love. This goes a long way. It goes a long way, trust me. All right, Jokes and Point, shout out to Jokes and Point. But political affiliation does matter. These places are unshakably Democrat. They are the ones cooking the books because Republicans pose no threat. That's a fact. And if you just look at what I said, even when I said it's both, I only brought up the fact of, if Democrats really care about Black Lives Matter, the nation, Democrats are in control of these cities. We got to keep it real. And there's always an excuse. I've had this conversation over and over with Democrats. Over and over with Democrats where I'm like, yo, these same cities that are the worst for Black people are ran by Democrats. They're run by Democrats. Run. My dad's probably like, it's run, not run. My dad always gives me grammatical correction. Shout out to my dad. He's tuning in. Strong black fathers solve a lot of these issues. And amazing mothers as well. So shout out to my mom. She's listening as well. But when a lot of these issues are presented and you say that, hey, there's Democrats in these cities that you're complaining about, there's Democrats. What do people always say? Well, the governors are largely Republicans. It's like, damn, is there any level of accountability that these people will take? Is there any level of accountability? And the answer is no. So we're going to move on to the Bibi Netanyahu interview. If I missed, hopefully I didn't miss any of the super chats. Definitely don't want to do that. Let's move on to this Bibi Netanyahu with Patrick Bet-David. Write in the chat if you're familiar with Patrick Bet-David. Write in the chat if you're familiar with Patrick Bet-David. I think he's doing his show right now. I used to really like Patrick Bet-David, man. I used to really enjoy watching his show. I used to enjoy his content. Let me not say the whole like and dislike thing, but I used to enjoy his content because the like dislike doesn't matter. I used to enjoy his content. I used to appreciate his perspective. Maybe that's a better way to say it. But now when I look at this type of stuff that he's doing, it's just disappointing. It's just extremely disappointing. Let's get to this interview. So write in the chat if you actually already watched this. Let's share this. Boom. All right, let's get to it. And honestly, thank you a lot. I know I'm talking fast, but I appreciate everybody that's been sending the super chats. It goes a long way. It's appreciated. It allows us to pour more into the show. So thank you.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, it's great to have you on the podcast.
Good to be with you, Patrick.
So I have a very simple, open-ended question for you. Why are you doing this podcast tour?
Well, number one, because I heard that you invited me. Number two, because I think it's a way to puncture the lies and the vilifications that are leveled at Israel. And I think that's part of the, we have a 7-front war with Iran and its proxies, but this is the 8th front, the battle for truth. So that's why I'm doing it.
It's interesting when you say that, because when we look at a couple numbers, if we think about the Pew Research that came out a couple months ago on the unfavorability rate of Israel, they have you 24 out of 5. If I look at the number, Rob, I don't know if you have it to pull it up. If you look at the numbers, you would see the 24-country median is 62 to 29 being favorable. Why do you think so many countries are unfavorable of Israel today?
I think it's a combination of historical trends, but also of the impact of social media, especially engineered social media with paid bots. And this new media environment that we're in, it has built-in parameters that really take their toll. So we're aware of that. But I think the most important thing is that for democracies to fight wars, they should be as short as possible. And my way of combating the PR war is by winning the ground war and winning it quickly. The quicker you win it, the better you'll come out of this assault.
All right, so y'all, I told y'all, don't get mad. I'm interrupting. This is how we do the live show. All right. After I may not do it as much, but on the question, what am I explaining myself for? Bibi Netanyahu is asked a question about why do you think you have a low favorability rating, and he starts talking about some stuff, and he starts talking about the bots, the media, the other stuff. It's very funny to me, and I didn't even realize this on the first time when I was reviewing this. It's funny because it's kind of ironic where a lot of people have said that the Jewish people have a stronghold on a lot of the media outlets. I just think that that's funny, but neither here nor there. He's talking about it's the bots. Is there no level of empathy as far as, and maybe there's not, but bro, you're committing what I believe is a genocide. You're committing a genocide, and in your mind, you're blaming, oh, it's just bots. It's just bots. That's his mindset. Now, let's see what PBD responds. As a matter of fact, I should have waited until the follow-up question with PBD, so bear with me.
So why do you think this is taking so long? Because if you think of a part of it, when you think about especially in America, there's 3 different types of people on social media right now or in America that follow you. One, they fully believe you're committing a genocide right now. They're part of the community that's thinking they compare you to some dictators, some terrible leaders in the past, many names you've heard of before. Some of them are blindly supportive of what you're doing, but there's the other community that's almost a little bit burned out, that's wanting this story to end. Obviously, it's tragic. You know, we're seeing what's going on. We're seeing all the stories, but why do you think this is taking longer than it's taking?
Well, I don't think it's taken longer than it's taking. Look at what we had to fight. We were attacked viciously by the most savage attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. That's by Hamas on October 7th. I said on the second day of the war, when Hezbollah joined the fray, I said we're going to change the face of the Middle East, because it was clear to me, and it may be clear to you too, that we're fighting the Iran axis. Without Iran, I would say that all the axes, all the proxies collapse. Hezbollah collapses, Hamas collapses, Assad collapses, and so on. So it was clear to me that we had to topple the Iran axis and not just deal with Hamas. And what happened following that was that we went in, Hamas is in its last breath. We haven't finished it yet, but we crippled Hamas. Then we went and finished off Hezbollah, took out Nasrallah. That led to the collapse of the Assad regime, whose armaments we destroyed. The Syrian army's armaments. We dealt with the Houthis, still dealing with them. And then we had Iran itself, that had struck us, and we had to strike back. And as you see, we changed the face of the Middle East, not only because we hobbled the proxies, but because Iran, which was a totally invincible enemy, throwing its weight around not only in the Middle East, spreading terror everywhere, and trying to arm itself with nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles to deliver them, we struck them very hard. So when you fight these four fronts, and there are another three, by the way, that I haven't mentioned, when you're doing that, a small country, it takes time. But I think we're approaching the final leg, and that's really finishing off Hamas. We can't have those monsters at spitting distance from Tel Aviv and our communities, and we're going to finish it.
Yeah, so when you say that for a person that lived in Iran, I look at the critics and they're giving, hey, let me tell you, it's not fair what he's doing with this. And you see ICC, which the average person, when they see ICC, 124 countries, that if you step foot in their country, they're supposed to arrest you, okay? And they're calling you a wartime criminal, the offenses you've done, the amount of, again, like I said earlier, they're calling it a genocide. How do you answer to the critics that they don't follow politics, they don't follow the stories closely, but if they see 120 something countries that if you land there, they're supposed to arrest you, the average person is going to say, maybe this isn't a good guy.
Yeah, well, they said that about Churchill too. He was a warmonger when he was talking about the German axis and the danger to the West. He said he warned of the slumber of democracies. And I guess if I learned one thing from our history, the history of the Jewish people, is that you can't sleep. When somebody says they're out to annihilate you, you better take it seriously and act to prevent it. And that's the central lesson that we learned in the way to be annihilated. And I think that, people see it after you do it. After you do it, after you realize your vision, then people say, well, yeah, we begin to understand it. But they don't before. And that's certainly true of the case here. In the United Nations, you have 180 countries, 190 countries. And a great majority would tell you that the earth is flat. It doesn't make it flat. And the vilifications against Israel is a country committing genocide and other war crimes. That doesn't make it true either. Let me tell you, did you ask?
Before he's about to go to a different question, I want to pay attention to something. He says that they learned a lesson as far as they should be taking forceful action against would-be annihilators. Against would-be annihilators. That just stands out to me because is there any realization that in order to create the Israeli state as it's presently constructed, that you had to kick Palestinians off of the land? Can we just agree on that foundational principle or truth, I should say? You had to remove people from their land. You're fighting for your land, you're saying, but you had to remove people off of their land. So when you call these people would-be annihilators, when you say that they committed the worst atrocity since the Holocaust to the Jewish people, what do you call what you did to them? What did you, like, is there any acknowledgement, any bit of humanity in you to where you can maybe understand, just like all of us in our chat, in this chat, would understand that if somebody took my home, like I'd be upset if somebody took my apartment. Like if somebody took your home and made you leave, you would have a problem with that, right? You're not just going to walk away and say, oh man, I paid off this home, you know, it's whatever. You're going to have a problem with it. In your mind, you're already at war. So for people to just pick and choose when this war started compared to when it did, based on what suits your best interest and what suits the narrative that you want to paint to the American people in the world, like, damn. And you would think that Patrick Bet-David would push back on some of this stuff. He likes to say, well, you know, I had an upbringing in Iran. He only brings that up when he's trying to justify him being on Israel's side. That's what it seems like to me, at least. Like, is there not, Patrick Bet-David, say something. Bro, you took their land. You can understand why they've been pissed off for the last 80 years, just like anybody else would, right? Would be annihilators. There's no would be when it comes to what you did to the Palestinians to create Israel. Regardless of whether or not you feel Israel should be created or not, you kicked those people off their land.
About the ICC prosecution just now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me tell you about that. So we were going to have this ICC prosecutor who's since been basically put to pasture. This ICC prosecutor was going to come to Israel in the beginning of the war. And he said, well, Israel has, you know, it has a proper judicial system, and you know, I don't see any real problem there. And he was about to come. And a day before he's about to come, he suddenly cancels the trip. And 2 days later, he issues this war crimes charge against me and the former defense minister. And we didn't understand, why did he do it? It took us months to discover that a few days before that, he was confronted by one of his staff members, a senior staff members, who brought the charges of rape and sexual misconduct that this prosecutor carried out against one of his staff members, a woman, a Malaysian woman, by the way, who was fiercely anti-Israel. But she had suffered this harassment and these rapes for over a year. Khan believed that this was his ruin. His brother, who's a British parliamentarian, was in jail for sexual misconduct too. So he said, that's it, that's the end of me. And then he figured out that there's one way to get out of this, and that is to deflect the entire conversation, to preempt it by blaming the Jews and blaming the prime minister of the Jewish state. And that's essentially what he did. Since then, you should know that there have been 4 or 5 other women who charged him with sexual misconduct. So what you have here is the ICC, which is a corrupt organization, totally politicized, unelected, that wants to, basically preempt the sovereignty of nations. And that's why the United States is not a member. They won't tell the United States that its soldiers are committing war crimes because some woke people in The Hague are telling you that. This ICC, this corrupt ICC prosecutor, thought that he would escape justice by basically by condemning us. And that's what he's done. And I think a lot of countries are waking up to that. It's sort of embarrassing when your chief prosecutor is doing such a corrupt and heinous thing. But that's the ICC. I mean, President Trump has put sanctions on him. He's put sanctions on the judges who did this. I think he's just facing it. That's what I like about him. He just cuts to the chase. This is a corrupt organization, a corrupt prosecutor, corrupt judges. And it reminds me of that movie. You remember Network? I think.
Yes.
We're not going to take it anymore. And it's not just Israel, because if they target Israel and they say to a democracy defending itself against these savages, you can't defend yourself, then no democracy is safe, and America isn't safe. So I think that's come out. There is extraordinary vilification, extraordinary lies leveled at Israel, and they're meant to prevent us from exercising our right, our legitimate right of self-defense. They won't succeed.
So if we talk about the legitimate right for you to defend yourself.
Before PBD doesn't ask the question that he should be asking, which is, it's funny when he can bring up this 3-minute rant of, well, the ICC, the director of it, pretty much, because they had a sexual assault or whatever they used. Maybe he used the R word, whatever. I'm not saying whatever the crime was. I'm not pushing the crime to the side. What I'm saying is that it's just pretty ironic that 2 weeks ago, what was the guy's name? Tom Alexandrovich. Y'all remember 2 weeks ago when it was the guy, I think Tom Alexandrovich, who was actually a part of, I believe he was a part of the Israeli intelligence team. He just got caught soliciting, I think, a 15-year-old for sex and was charged with it. But then after he posted bail bond, whatever, he was sent back to Israel to avoid the charges. Isn't that funny how, like, it's almost like you try to play into our emotions of trying to create this person as being a bad person because maybe they did something bad. But it's funny how you use your leverage when somebody is charged of doing something bad, and you use your leverage and political leverage to bring them back to Israel. And that was one of your intelligence agents, I believe. It's all of this stuff. But of course, Patrick Bet-David won't bring any of this up, right? He's a journalist, but he's really just here to give Bibi Netanyahu a platform to speak to America and spew whatever propaganda that he wants to that aligns with his particular vision. This was made clear in the beginning of the show. In the beginning of the show, keep in mind when I don't know if y'all peep when Patrick Bet-David asked Bibi Netanyahu, well, what's making you go on this podcast tour? Bibi Netanyahu had an interesting answer. He responded and said, well, you invited me. Like, pretty much, I don't know how y'all took that, but I took that as like, bro, stop playing these games. Stop acting like you didn't invite me here. Like it's more just me doing a tour. Now, I think it is him doing a tour to do exactly what I just told you, put whatever propaganda he wants that aligns with his vision and the story that he wants to get out. But Patrick Bet-David, you invited this man on the show. You won't bring a Nick Fuentes on the show because you say he says the N-word, but then you'll bring a Bibi Netanyahu on the show who based on his credibility when he came to America before and told us that Saddam and Iraq, they had the weapons of mass destruction, right? That the whole Iraq situation where 500,000 children were killed. And then when we got there, it was like, oops, no weapons of mass destruction. Patrick Bet-David, I hope, would bring up the fact that Bibi Netanyahu's credibility should be tarnished already based on what he's already allowed Americans to get involved with. So when Bibi Netanyahu says, well, Iran looks at, the United States is the big Satan and Israel is the small Satan, well, maybe there's a reason why. So when all these people say that, well, we benefit tremendously from our alliance with Israel, well, perhaps there's some negatives associated with that as well. And perhaps the negatives, like killing 500,000 children and then having Madeleine Albright say that it was justified, I don't know if that would be considered as a very good alliance. Now, it could be profitable, especially for some of these politicians or whoever else, but for the actual American people, I don't think that you'd have to convince me that that's a very beneficial relationship to America, the way that it's presently constructed.
You'll see the numbers. I'm a business guy. I'll see how this war has cost you roughly 120 to 130 billion dollars. Whether it's Hamas, Gaza, Iran, roughly 120 to 130 billion dollars. Reports that we read. Your debt to GDP ratio went from 60% to 75%. So some of the Americans, they're sitting there saying, yeah, we give you guys roughly 3.8 billion. For the war, America's given roughly $30 billion, which most of it was in weapons. But if you're going from 60 to 75%, how much longer can your economy or even the state be able to afford the war?
Patrick, I'm going to have some good news for you.
Please.
I led first as finance minister and then as prime minister, a free market revolution in Israel. And Israel became a wealthy country because we unleashed the genius in our population and innovators and just incredible capacity to produce products and services that service all mankind in medicine and communications. That cell phone that you're probably holding has half of it is probably made in Israel. And the cherry tomatoes that you eat, they were made in Israel and so on. And medicines that you use, made in Israel. So Israel became a powerhouse, a juggernaut of innovation and enterprise. And it strengthened our economy. We went from $17,000 per capita to about $60,000 in a very short time. It's a tremendous success story. Now, here's the truth. This is something I just saw, a slide. I wish I had it here. Too bad. But the slide shows investments in R&D that a country receives from foreign sources. So number one is the United States, like huge. Number two, in absolute terms, now as we speak, today, is Israel, tiny Israel. The next country is Germany. It's 2/3 of Israel, and the rest of the Western countries fall further and further behind. So our economy is actually doing quite well, I should say, and it's amazing. And you're right to ask it. But there was an economic miracle in Israel, which I'm very proud to have led. And we just have this resilient capacity, both in our economy, but also in our fighting spirit. We've gone through the Holocaust, and I'm committed, as are my people, to prevent a second Holocaust that Iran was planning. And that's what we've been doing in this war. It's taken this long because we had to break this noose of death that Iran was going to put on us in their plans to conquer the Middle East, in their plans to then proceed to Europe, and in their plans to then proceed to America. They say death to America. We're just standing in their way. And boy, did we stand in their way.
So I guess the question to kind of move on from this one, do you see
Patrick Bet David? Nobody cares about asking Bibi Netanyahu, well, how long can you guys keep this up financially? Why don't you ask the question that you really want to ask? Americans don't want to fund this war. Americans have a problem with us writing checks to give you guys weapons to purchase from our weapon companies. Americans have a problem with that. How do you feel about it, Bibi Netanyahu? You're talking about, oh my God. It's just, you know why it's frustrating? You know why it's frustrating? Because I don't know if y'all are, how familiar you are with Patrick Bet David. Patrick Bet David is a millionaire. I believe he made most of his money selling life insurance, right? What do they like to call it? Financial advisor, whatever they like to call it. It reminds me of like this interview that I went on for this financial advising company. I forget where, whatever. But you're selling people life insurance. This man is a part owner of the Yankees. And the reason why I say all this stuff, it's like, damn, do you get to a certain point where you have enough money where you just don't allow yourself to be manipulated and controlled and be a puppet of a particular group? Like at what point, and this is, we've always heard, like, sometimes in politics, we've talked about different people. Oh, well, they got to, play a certain role in order to get to the top. We see this in corporate America. Well, they got to, play a certain role to work their way up to the top. However you got to the top, that's typically what you lean into in order to stay at the top. Because it's not like you just get to the top of something, you make a whole lot of money. You know what's the scariest thing about making money? The more money you make, you're scared about losing it. Just so I hear. I haven't made that much, but just what I hear. The scariest thing about making it to the top is losing it. So therefore, you get a guy like Patrick Bet David, and I guess I'm answering my own question. Let's keep going.
Yourself, if you're saying the war is not going on for too long, if this thing takes a couple more years, do you see yourself getting to a point that you're going to need to the American taxpayers and need more money and support, or are you able to sustain the expenditure that you have right now?
Yeah, I think we've organized that, and we're perfectly able to do that. I want you to know one other thing. I think Israel is different from your other allies. We spend an inordinate amount of our GDP, inordinate amount, to defend ourselves. I think one of your senators said something very, very true. He said, if we had in Israel, next to in Afghanistan, or if we had another Israel there, You know, we wouldn't have spent $1 trillion or trillions of dollars. Israel is receiving and is very grateful for the American military assistance at about $3.8 billion a year, and 80% of it is spent in the United States. That's the deal. So it helps American industries. But we also produce these incredible weapons that we share with the United States. We produce intel that is invaluable for the United States. You're familiar with the Five Eyes, Patrick? You know what that is? You know all these countries that are part of the American intelligence system? Well, there's a sixth eye, Israel. It's a very powerful eye, and we share our intel with the American intelligence services. And that's why the bond is so strong. It's not only a bond of values of our common Judeo-Christian civilization, and it is really a war of civilization against the barbarians that we're fighting, but it's also a bond of utility, of great success. That partnership is very, very strong. I know it's challenged all the time, but it's very, very strong. And you should talk to some of the people in the higher places in the Pentagon. I wish you could talk to the people who share our intelligence or the weapon systems that we share. I think that you'll discover that they appreciate, as we appreciate enormously what America gives to us, and they appreciate what Israel gives to America. Somebody said to me, "You're the one fighting ally we have. You don't ask us to put boots on the ground. You don't ask us to fight your wars." Although President Trump did a great thing by joining in that precise strike that he did. Didn't just start World War III. It didn't bring thousands of American troops on the ground in Iran, but it did. It was a magnificent addition to our brave soldiers. So I have to tell you, I think it's a partnership that is going to go on for a long, long time. As far as I'm concerned, for all time.
Y'all can fact check the whole boots on the ground. I'm pretty sure that we've had boots on the ground with a lot of conflicts that we've gotten into based on our relationship with Bibi Netanyahu. He said something. Hold on. Let me kind of go back
just start. Well, he said to me, "You're the discover that they appreciate." That partnership is very.
Okay. This whole intelligence thing, I wanted to try to pull that back up. So this whole intelligence thing that he's discussing, I wanted to try to pull it back on the screen. Maybe I can't. It is what it is. Do y'all recall the interview that Tucker Carlson did with Ted Cruz recently, where Ted Cruz got destroyed in the interview, and he brought up the fact that Netanyahu and Israel, they spy on us? And Ted Cruz was losing it. I mean, Tucker Carlson was losing it, saying, like, what do you mean they spy on us? When Ted Cruz was saying, yeah, they share intelligence with us. So they're sharing intelligence with us. Ted Cruz admitted that they spy on us. What's one of the biggest stories happening right now? Epstein, right? The fact that Trump was supposed to uncover the Epstein files, hasn't done anything. Epstein is being accused of working with Mossad, working with Israeli intelligence. You would think that this would be the perfect time for Patrick Bet-David to bring some of this stuff up, right? It's an interview. It almost feels as if Netanyahu's just walking him through the interview. None of this stuff was answered, so I'll say it. Since Patrick Bet-David didn't bring it up, I'll bring it up for y'all. These are the things that we should be considering. So while he's trying to propagandize us and manipulate us into making it seem as reasons why Israel is such a great ally, so we can excuse the death and destruction that's been happening in Palestine, I'll bring it up for y'all. So therefore, it's just in our minds when we're hearing him speak. You spy on us. You clearly, what it comes across to us based on some of these stories that we heard. We heard Matt Gaetz talk about there was somebody in his hotel room that when you go on these trips to Israel, what was he saying? Now, I don't know whether it's, maybe I shouldn't even comment on it because there's no way to confirm a lot of this stuff. Let's just be real. Israel, whether it's through AIPAC or whether through other sorts, including Epstein, have been accused of using certain leverage against our politicians in order to get things done. Now, you would add, and this is the power in questions, because at least when you ask somebody a question, you could see how uncomfortable they are answering it. Let's get back to it.
Absolutely not. I think it's full of hokum.
At this point, believe that whatever Israel wants, they make. There's a overly it's through things they know.
As I'm concerned, for all time.
Prime Minister, what do you say to the critics who say Israel owns America. Israel is who makes America do things they want them to do, whether it's through AIPAC, whether it's through, funding, money. You'll typically hear this. This has been overly said the last couple of years
Epstein.
in a major way. And there's a community of Americans that at this point believe that whatever Israel wants, they make a phone call to America. America better do or else. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely not. I think it's full of hokum. First of all, do you know President Trump? I mean, sort of, I've known him for many years.
Sure.
Okay. You don't make him do anything. He does what he thinks is in America's interest, and he's very forceful about it. When he sees allies who don't step up to the plate, he's not shy about saying it. And we have a different relationship altogether. It's not one of coercion or manipulation. It's one of common interests and common values. And I think that people understand that, because Israel is different. It really is. We know that we have to fight for ourselves, and we do. But when we fight for ourselves, we fight for you too, because we fight Iran. Iran tried to murder President Trump not once, but twice. Iran killed and wounded thousands of Americans with their IEDs, explosive devices, in Iraq and Afghanistan. Iran killed 241 Marines in Beirut. They bomb your embassies. They burn American flags. They have mobs chanting, "Death to America, death to America." So when we fight Iran, we're not just fighting our war, we're fighting your war, but we are fighting that war here in the Middle East. And let me tell you what would happen. And as someone who had been in the Middle East as a child, I think you can appreciate this. It's not only we who are threatened by Iran, it's our Arab neighbors too. They know that Iran wants to conquer them, pillage their oil fields, take over the Middle East, the maritime routes that control world trade. So they know that. But if you look at who's actually fighting Iran, it's Israel. It's Israel, our brave soldiers, our incredibly brave soldiers. And this tiny country, President Trump asked me, how do you guys do this? I mean, you're such a small country, we're the size of New Jersey, bigger than Rhode Island, but that's it. We're slightly smaller than New Jersey, and we take on this enormous empire with all its proxies, this anti-American empire that threatens to kill the president and chants death to America. How do you do this? And I said, well, you're like an enormous lion, almost like a prehistoric saber-toothed tiger. You're enormous. We're not, but we are. We're the the badger. This little animal.
Absolutely.
Badger. And you see a badger being, some tiger or lioness is trying to kill it, and it sort of turns around. It has very sharp teeth, and it knows how to go to the weakness points. To the points of vulnerability of the enemy. And you see these things. I watch NGO Wild when my wife lets me, because she likes to watch cooking shows. Okay. So late at night, after we have this argument, we settle on some compromise. And on Nat Geo Wild, I see these films of this badger, this tiny creature, it's about this big, taking on a lion, and the lion runs away. So Israel is the badger of the international scene. It has the fortitude, the will to fight our enemies because of our history. Because for so long, we didn't have a state, we didn't have an army, we didn't have the ability to defend ourselves, which culminated in this crescendo of massacres that culminated in the worst massacre of them all, the Holocaust, in which a third of our people were annihilated. We have that in our bones, in our hearts, in our soul, and we fight. And that's I think President Trump would like to see more Israels around the globe, because everybody who says America first, I can respect that, but I don't think they want America alone. And if you can have allies that actually share your values and fight for them in various parts of the world, and especially in the Middle East, with Iran trying to take over the world, I think that's a valuable addition. So, it'll take time for this to sink in, but it will sink in.
Yeah, the topic of America first, it's become a little bit more clear where people.
Patrick Bet. Matter of fact, let me not even make this about Patrick Bet David. My fault. He said that Iran tried to assassinate Trump. Let's go back to that same interview that I was referencing before with Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz. In that interview, Tucker Carlson pressed Ted Cruz about Bibi Netanyahu propagandizing America and saying that Iran tried to kill Donald Trump. That's what Bibi Netanyahu said, right? He said twice. In that same interview, Ted Cruz said, no. Bibi Netanyahu, he misspoke. Tucker Carlson was asking, what's the evidence that Iran tried to do this? And he said Bibi Netanyahu misspoke. So, of course, he's not pressed on this question. Of course, he's allowed to just say this stuff freely with no pushback. And it comes across as the truth to those that want to receive it as the truth. And, you know, the people that don't will take it whatever other way. But the people that are in the middle, the people that are just kind of looking to lean one way that may be a little bit easier for them life-wise to lean that way, then they will.
Are being put in different groups. America.
Time for this to sink in, but it will sink in.
Yeah, you know, the topic of America first, it's become a little bit more clear where people are being put in different groups. America first and America only, and that debate's going on right now, which is a great debate. I actually like listening to both sides make their argument. But you said, do you think President Trump is a type of a man that you can get anything you want and make him do what he wants? I don't think President Trump is. But I do think Biden and others are. So the whole criticism of the fact that Israel, whatever they want, they can call America and have favors being done, I would agree with you on Trump, but with Biden. So maybe a question that I don't think's been asked yet. Putin was asked 2 weeks ago if the war between Ukraine and Russia would have happened under Trump. He said, no, it wouldn't have happened. So for you, would the war and the Hamas attack have happened if President Trump was president instead of Biden?
I don't know. It's a good question, but you said something about Biden that I should just point out the facts. In fact, President Biden supported us in the beginning of the war after this horrific massacre, and he came here, and I very much appreciate it. But as the war progressed and the vilifications of Israel, the distortions on the media began to pile on, he began to take a different course. And when we were just 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way in Gaza, I said we have to go into that last position that they had where they had organized battalions. It's in a city called Rafah in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. And he said, don't go there. And he said, if you do go there, I'll smack an embargo on you. Now, you're fighting a 7-front war, and all of a sudden you're slapped with an embargo of weapons. That was tough. And I said to President Biden, who I've known for many years, I respect the fact you're the president of the United States, but I'm the prime minister of the one and only Jewish state, and we've been fighting to survive in our small place under the sun. It's been a battle that has been going on for 3,500 years. So I'll have to do what we have to do. And then a few days later, Tony Blinken, who was the Secretary of State, came to Israel, and he said, the president is serious about this embargo. And I said, Tony, I know it's serious because you stopped all the weapons. You slow walked them before, but now you've stopped them. And then I said to him this. He said, well, how are you going to do it then? I said, Tony, we'll fight with our fingernails if we have to, but we're not going to leave. It's like the Allies would leave a quarter of the German battalions in place and not go into Berlin. And I said, would you take that? Would you take that, Patrick? Of course you wouldn't. So we didn't take it either. We did it against the opposition of the American president. So much for Israel controlling the United States. We don't. But we do seek to control our destiny. And when somebody commits a crime like they did on October 7th, decapitating our men, raping our women and then murdering them, burning children alive in front of their parents, taking 255 hostages, grandmothers with their grandchildren, this horror, and pledged to do it again and again and again. Well, what choice do we have? We have to fight them and their Iranian patrons, and we did just that. We did that first with American help, then with American opposition, and when President Trump came in, with great American help, which I truly appreciate. And I think President Trump does what he thinks is good for America. I don't think that. I know that for a fact.
All right. Very quickly, a couple different things. First off, I may owe my man Biden an apology. Because I didn't know that before I watched this interview that Biden threatened to put that embargo if Bibi Netanyahu and the IDF in Israel were going to go to Rafah. I wasn't aware of that. Now, I've said on this show plenty of times that Biden or Kamala Harris, they didn't ask for a ceasefire. Now, from my understanding, that's still true. But you got to give credit where credit's due. If he did like an embargo, that's a big step for him to take. And it's a lot more than perhaps what we're seeing Donald Trump do. So I just got to acknowledge that when it comes to Biden. Now, jokes and point, appreciate that super chat. Thank you so much. Sorry, disagree. If Israel was the expansionist, why have they maintained peace with Egypt and Jordan for decades? They gave Gaza back too. Well, I guess the premise of your argument is kind of the problem, where if they're the expansionists, well, how about how they were created in the first place? Like, how about how Israel was currently created? They removed Palestinians from their land. A lot of the Palestinians that had taken in Jewish people when they didn't have a land, correct? So then when they get home to their homes and people have taken over their homes, you can understand how that would be a problem. So then as far as maintaining peace with Egypt and Jordan, I don't know. That's like saying, well, I may treat you bad, but then I say, well, how am I a bad person? I treat them good. Well, I treated them bad. Like, I don't understand. I mean, do you not think what's going on right now is they're trying to expand and take control of Gaza? Is that not expanding? I don't know. But definitely, either way, these are the conversations that we need to have. These are the conversations that we need to have. Appreciate the super chat. And we're actually going to do something. We're actually going to pause the interview at this point. There's about 15 minutes left. My overall takeaway, it's propaganda in my mind. And I think that this was obviously just put together just to serve for that purpose for Bibi Netanyahu. When he talks about all these horrors that the Palestinians committed on October 7th, of course, a real journalist we would expect, but not Patrick Bet-David, apparently, to push back on some of these reports that were actually put out that were taken back. Like, even I think there were some articles that were saying what Palestinians were doing or stuff like that, or what Hamas was doing, and there were credibility issues with it. I don't want to speak too much on it because I don't just have it in my mind right now. And it's the same thing on the other side, right? Like, if you're going to talk about the horrors that one side is committing, you would think that you would talk about some of these crazy things that we're seeing on the other side. Patrick Bet-David went through this entire interview. He didn't mention the church bombing. He didn't mention the recent double tap where they just killed Western journalists and they bombed the hospital, right? And then they ran it back, spun the block, and bombed again. He didn't ask about all these women and children being killed. He didn't ask about the credibility that I mentioned earlier in Iraq. There's just not a lot of questions being asked, but I guess it served Bibi Netanyahu's purpose. So now we have the most important part of the show. The most important part of the show, especially for people that have not seen the show or that are new to it, this is the most important part of the show. This is where we take at least 45 to 60 seconds to just be still, meditate, manifest, get your breath work in. We try to get rid of everything that may have been built up on the show, right? A lot of times these shows, they're heavy topics. They play on our emotions. There are a lot for us to discuss, but we have to go throughout the rest of the day, right? From a logical, practical standpoint, I'm still making sure that we're doing certain things throughout the rest of the day to obviously win, right? So when it comes to that, we like to say every exhale during this 45 seconds is releasing all the negative energy. Every inhale, inhaling the positive. We can have heated discussions. We can have passionate discussions. But at the end of the day, I think like the young legend Nick Fuentes said earlier is we have to be solution oriented. We can complain about the problems, but when we just spend time thinking about the problems, a lot of times we don't spend enough energy thinking about the solutions. All right. My mindset is always the same. See, and for a lot of people that just came in today, let me let you know, as far as my mindset, I don't like wars. I don't think wars accomplish anything. I think that a lot of times when it comes to these wars, we end up in the very same position that we were in before the war, where it's the same people at the table, right? You'll have the leader of this country who doesn't like the leader of this country. You got Putin and you got Zelensky, right? How many people have died? Aren't they like running after people, like capturing people, running down on them to try to enlist them in the army? I heard they're like enlisting like 60-year-olds or 50-year-olds right now because of that war, but just because they need people. And then what's going to end up happening? They're going to come back to the table, the same thing that they could have done in the beginning of the war or before the war even turned violent, right? Before the conflict even turned violent, they could have sat down. But a lot of times the people that are sitting down at the table, because they're not on the actual battlefield, they do not care. They're playing chess. They're using pawns in order to accomplish things for the greater good of the country, they say, right? But of course, they have no skin in the game because they're not actually the ones that are fighting. What did the great Achilles say to Agamemnon in Troy in that opening scene? What a day it will be, and I'm going to misquote him, but what a day it will be when kings fight their own wars. Zelensky and Putin, why don't y'all get in the ring and fight to the death then, if that's what you really want to do? And then we'll settle it that way, and we'll see how many of these altercations we end up having. Or how about we just realize that with humanity being as advanced as we can create all this AI, all this new technology, maybe we can figure out a different way to resolve problems. Maybe we can figure out ways where hundreds of thousands of people don't have to die to get us in the same position that we were in before there was a conflict in the first place, or before there was a violent conflict in the first place. Perhaps we need to put pressure on our leaders to do that. But until we embrace this mindset, this is just my opinion. Y'all may have y'all opinion. That's cool. Until we embrace this mindset where we just say war is no good, we don't accept war. Just think about it. We have this concept of war crimes. We have war crimes. Why do we have war crimes? So we can police the things that are supposed to be done in war, and so things don't get out of hand, right? Assuming that people are going to follow those rules. So why not just make war a crime? What's the difference? Why do people have to be killed? Largely the people that don't benefit, right? The people at the bottom, the people that are enlisted in these armies, whatever they may be, they're not the elites that are going to get the most benefit from us going to war or be able to pat themselves on the back and, stand with their chest out. People are dying for no reason. Don't get manipulated into thinking that you're fighting for your country, you're fighting for all this stuff. You're fighting for the top 1% of the 1% in the country. You're not fighting for the rest of us, because since I see a lot of people in the chat, y'all are Christians, right? Y'all are Christians. What does the Bible say? Doesn't the Bible say something about violence only leading to more violence? Doesn't the Bible say that vengeance is only for God? So perhaps we can apply some of these principles to reality and not just snatch whatever we want to snatch from the Bible or snatch whatever we want to snatch from this book or that book when it suits our personal interest. And I can't even say when it suits our personal interest, because our personal interests, in my opinion, are largely shaped by the propaganda that we're either receiving from a Bibi Netanyahu or receiving from our political leaders. That's just my opinion. No war. War is a crime, period. Figure out a different way. It's not fair for the people to have to die for what? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? All right. So 45 seconds we're going to take. I like to close my eyes when I do my 45 seconds. Let me remind y'all once again, every exhale, feel your breath leaving. Feel your breath leaving. Don't be too tough to meditate, all right? Don't be too tough to meditate. Feel the breath leaving. Feel all the negative energy leaving. Inhale in the positive. So by the end of these 45 seconds, we're just recirculating positive energy, all right? So you focus on whatever it is that you need to focus on. Reflect on whatever it is, and we'll go from there. If you're in a safe place, once again, you can close your eyes. We'll begin those 45 seconds now. All right, give me an inhale, inhaling positive. And then this next exhale, we're releasing all the negative energy. Feel it released, all right? Now we're just back on the positive, all right? We're back on the positive, all right? Solution-oriented. Let's not get too emotionally engaged and angered to the point where we start turning into the very people that we can't stand and start behaving in ways that feed into the very things and principles and ideologies that we can't stand, because radical on this side is only encouraging radical on that side. So y'all know what we come here to do. Elevate on purpose. Elevate on purpose. That's what the OG Network is all about. For the newcomers, our goal is to elevate on purpose, both from an intentional standpoint, raising our standards to become the best leaders we can become that are needed now more than ever, and in order to grow into the people that we need to grow into in order to accomplish these audacious goals, what some people may call arrogant. Perhaps one of those audacious goals is us reaching this greater peace, right? This greater peace, us figuring out a way where humanity can live in harmony. And of course, we got to start in our own households, start in our own cities, states, communities, and just extend outward from there. All right. I appreciate y'all. Strength and honor, onward and upward. Get to the bag. Get to the bag all week. And when I say get to the bag, what do I mean by get to the bag? That's all the little things that are not little things, but all the things that we do throughout the hour, throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, that are going to accumulate to us achieving our greater purpose. All right. That purpose, that big P purpose. All right. That we like to call it's our impact on the world that we like to call, from The Alchemist, our personal legend. All right. So the little things, focusing on the little things that we're doing is going to make sure that we're on the proper trajectory to live in our purpose and strive for purposeful abundance. So the things that I focus on are peace, love, happiness, health, wealth, and in everything we do, integrity. And what I've added to that, which may be something that we all can appreciate, is balance. All right. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Like I am so grateful. I'm so grateful. Like this has been nothing but gratitude this last week. Like all of these things, like trust and believe. And for the people that have been tuning into the show, thank you. We've been doing this for 3 years, and everybody, we appreciate all the newcomers. Please make sure that you're liking and subscribing. This is the opportunity that we were waiting for. And I promise you, we're built for it. We are built for this. We prepared for this moment. We're ready for this moment. And we're not going to stop pressing the issue. So I'm super excited, super locked in, super engaged, and that wouldn't be possible without all y'all. So love y'all, appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Tap into the videos that we'll be releasing throughout the week, and the next live show will be Friday at 8 a.m. Salute.